You'll want to go check out what's happening at the Oldest Profession podcast. They just started releasing new episodes and are doing really cool stuff. Caitlin Bailey has teamed up with historian Dr. Charlene Fletcher and a whole team at Old Pro Productions to make a 3-part series every month. And then as a bonus, once a month, Dr. Fletcher hosts a panel. I already binged on the first 3 episodes about Victoria Woodhull, and I can't wait to see what they do with Marsha P. Johnson and Sylvia Rivera. Check them out. Also, they have cute merch, like really cute stuff. Welcome to the Peep Show podcast.
News and stories from the sex industry.
With Jesse and PJ Sage. Welcome back to another episode of the Peep Show podcast. This week we're doing a joint episode with After Adult Podcast. We have on Siri Dahl from the After Adult Podcast, and we talk to her about porn, podcasting, politics, and place.
Hey, I'm Adrian, one of the hosts of After Adult Podcast. My porn name should be Mozart Fremont, but you probably know me better by my actual porn name, Siri.
I'm Rachel, but my porn name would be Woody 16th Avenue.
After Adult is a podcast about life and porn.
I don't actually watch porn.
I don't really watch that much porn either. I probably watch more than you, but I mean, most of the time it kind of would feel like going to work on my day off.
You 100% watch more than me, because I don't watch porn. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for After Adult.
Or visit afteradult.com and follow us on Instagram at afteradult.
Welcome back to the Peep Show podcast.
Welcome.
So, we've had a busy week.
And it's only Tuesday.
You got a mammogram.
Yeah, and let me tell you about mammograms when you have implants, because it's a whole thing that I didn't know happened. So,
See, this is important information for all the sex workers out there.
no, it is.
Not that everyone has implants, but I mean,
there is a fair number of people
there's
who have
a high
implants.
proportion of sex workers who have.
Yeah, so I had to go get a mammogram because I'm an old lady, so now I have to do it every year. And so I had one right before I got implants, and they just did it like normal, like they just stick your boob in and squeeze it. And then when I got there today, they were like, "Has anything changed since last time?" And I was like, "Yes."
You're like, let me tell you.
I have implants. And they're like, "Oh, I'm very glad you told me that because it's not in your charts." And then they were like, "Okay, well, now the procedure's a little bit different. And what we're going to do now is we're going to do the regular ones with your implants. And then we're going to pull your flesh off your implants and only squeeze that." And I was like, "Wait, what?"
That sounds really appealing.
Yeah. And she was like, "Don't worry. It's not as bad as it sounds." And I was like, "Okay, first of all, I didn't even know that was possible. Second of all, no surgeon told me that this was going to happen like this. And third of all, that tech did not have implants, so I don't know how she would know that it's not as bad as she thinks it is. So they she seriously pulled as hard as she could and then stuck only a little bit of skin and mostly my nipples and just clamped it down. So
Ew.
that
with
was
what? What did she clamp it down in?
There's a one big plastic sheet and another one and a machine that just compresses it down. So it was a thing. And then they do it vertically and then horizontally. The whole machine shifts from one direction to the other one so that they can get all the different angles of squishing. So
yeah, that sounds legit rough.
Yeah. And she was like, hold your breath and then I'll take the images. But the fact of the matter is I had to hold my breath because I was so shockingly intense that I just stopped breathing. But it was, it was okay. I survived. And I get to do it again next November. So I have another
to look forward to.
Yeah, I have another 364 days of nobody compressing my boobs and pulling them off the implants.
Well, I mean,
I don't know. Can that be good for you? I don't know. So it was okay though. I survived, but I just didn't know that they even manhandled you like that. That was something.
one day somebody's going to buy one of those like old machines when the hospital's done with it and like stick it into a dungeon.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know. And
Turn it into some kind of medical play. Like,
okay, so I don't know if this is like real or not. I don't know what they were measuring. Like if but there's like a digital readout on there. And I was looking at the digital readout when it was happening, and it said that like each of my boobs was like 15 pounds, but I was like, that can't be. I think it means that it's like 15 pounds of pressure. I don't know. I didn't ask actually. But I was like, is it one boob 15 pounds? That doesn't seem right.
I don't know.
So anyways.
Did it feel like a 15-pound weight was sitting on your flesh?
Probably. Yeah, maybe. Okay. Maybe. Yeah.
Right, cool.
That's my story for the day. What about you, PJ?
Well, I got a new lens from Japan, a new 1980s vintage lens, and chased deer around in the woods.
Oh, that's right. You did do that.
Yeah. So, my day was...
You could have gotten like hoofed by a...
I actually was far less worried about getting hoofed and far more concerned about the fact that I climbed across like a tree across a ravine.
You did?
Yeah.
With your new lens?
Well, I mean, my new 40-year-old lens.
Yeah, okay.
I wanted to get some good deer shots.
Yeah, you did. You did get some good deer shots. For those of you who want to check out deer, go to his Fleek. Wait, is it Fleek? Fleet. His Twitter.
It's Fleet. But it's fleeting. It's going to be gone by the time the podcast gets out.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, is that why they call it that?
Yeah, a fleeting tweet.
Oh, I didn't even. Yeah, no. I didn't connect those dots.
I don't know who did.
Okay. We have a fun episode today. We have Siri Dahl on from After Adult Podcast and also from porn that many of you have probably seen. So we are excited to talk to her. We actually did a joint episode. So the conversation that PJ and I had with her is both on our episode and also came out on her episode. And unfortunately, her co-host Rachel couldn't be with her that day. So it's only Siri and PJ and I.
But it's still funny. It
is fun. And it led to funny dynamics because I wasn't sure if I was a host or a guest.
Well, you were both.
We were all three of us were both hosts and guests. So you can see that dynamic play out in the episode.
Yeah. Buckle your seatbelts. It's about to get weird.
Okay, that's all the time we should take. But enjoy the episode, and we will catch up with you guys after Thanksgiving.
Happy gobbler cluck cluck. What do you say for Thanksgiving? I don't know. Cranberry sauce.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Over at troublefilms.com, they have a few new releases, including Tatami by Mistress Katie Kanako and her production crew in Tokyo, Japan. Tatami continues Trouble Films' 2020 trajectory of exploring queer kink, bondage, and power exchange. Go to troublefilms.com now to buy the film or stream over 100 queer porn videos and films with your troublefilms.com VIP membership. Only $20 for your first month. Welcome.
Welcome everyone.
Welcome to our show. We welcome ourselves to yours.
I welcome myself to your show.
Great.
Thank you to me for having me here.
I know, I realize it's so silly. I don't know how to introduce you when it's like not my show.
I think we just did a fantastic intro.
Yeah, that was great. Yeah, so hi. Maybe that would have been more appropriate. Hi.
Hi is always a good intro. Hi, Jesse. Hi, PJ.
Hello.
Hi, Siri. Yeah, so we wanted to do a joint episode with you where we put it on both of our podcasts. So we're excited to talk to you today and talk about your work and your podcast and what we have going on over here, too.
Yes, I know, because I think we both have our hands in a lot of different things, so we'll
Yeah.
have plenty information to dissect here.
Yeah. So let's talk about your podcast. You do After Adult podcast with your friend. Can you tell us a little bit about why you started that and what you guys have been up to?
Yeah, so my podcast, After Adult, which anyone who's listening, if you're listening on my podcast, obviously you already know. If you're listening to Peep Show, then you can find After Adult at afteradult.com. I do the podcast with my co-host, Rachel, who's a civilian, not a sex worker currently, formerly, or also, I assume, not futurely. She's just like my best friend that I met when I moved to Kentucky. Um, and so it's kind of great because we talk about we talk about my experiences in porn. We talk about just in general all things sex related. We talk about relationship stuff. We talk about queer stuff like social justice issues. So we kind of cover a lot of bases, but in general we try to be entertaining, informative, and welcoming to all of our listeners, a lot of whom are my fans from my porn career. So yeah, it's a lot. It's really fun to do. And I started doing the podcast in the summer of 2018, back when I was still working like a civilian job and was in retirement from porn.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hence
And
the name.
yeah, yeah. So it's funny, if you listen to the very first episodes of the podcast, you can kind of listen to the progression of me, like kind of getting back into porn and dipping my toe back in and telling Rachel like, oh yeah, I'm on OnlyFans now. And then talking about when I go back and do my first, my comeback shoot, which is like this big deal shoot that I did with Brazzers. And so it's cool that actually the thing that kind of got me back into porn more than anything else was actually doing my podcast.
That's
Really?
so interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which ironically was about not being
doing
in porn.
Yes, I know. That was the big joke when I got back in officially, and Rachel was like, Adrian, I don't care what you do, because obviously Rachel calls me Adrian. That is my real first name. And like, that's also another funny kind of weird thing about the fact that I started the podcast when I wasn't doing porn anymore. But Rachel kind of made fun of me. She's like, what are we going to call the podcast now? Like,
right.
after adult? Like,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, PJ, that's a really good point, is like, it is kind of a small irony that I started creating this project so that I had an outlet to talk about my experiences having done porn, specifically because I didn't do porn anymore.
Right.
And I found myself 1 year into the podcast essentially wanting to do porn again, because I felt so comfortable like having a space where I could safely just talk about these experiences I had with one of my best friends.
What happened? Like, while you're doing the podcast, did you feel like you started missing it, like reliving those experiences through talking about them with your friend, or you just became more comfortable?
Yeah, it was a huge thing, because Rachel always knew that about me ever since I moved out here and we became friends. Like, I think the first time we ever met, we like got drinks at this burger place. And I remember like having like 2 beers and being like almost tipsy and just being like, look, I just need to tell you, I moved here because I just like used to do porn, and like I just stopped doing porn a month ago, and now I'm like randomly here in Kentucky, like I don't know what to do. Like, and she was just like, well, holy shit. Like, so she's been, since the day I met her, she's been super supportive as a friend. But it was also like, because that's not what our friendship's about, I didn't ever just sit down and be like, hey, let me tell you all these stories about porn,
Right. Right.
So doing the podcast together kind of gave me this avenue to tell all these stories about porn. And Rachel's been sitting there like, and she's been listening, and she's had like input, and she's learned a lot, and I've learned a lot from her. So I think that was a huge part of it, was having this like very uncensored, like I keep saying safe space, because that's what it has been for me, to just talk openly about my experiences. And honestly, post my decision to retire from porn, which was like early 2015, I didn't really get that anywhere else.
Right.
And I wasn't really seeking it out either. I think I was in a mental space where I was like really wanting to just step back from my career in porn altogether. Like, I was at the time certain that my retirement would be permanent for the rest of my life. So I think another sad part of it is that over the years that I was retired and working like, quote unquote civilian jobs, that I kind of started to buy into the stigma a little too much. And the
Oh.
scary thing is I didn't notice I was doing it.
How did you start noticing that?
Yeah, I think when I first really noticed was the first relationship that I was in post porn retirement was with this guy that we ended up being together for close to, it was like well over a year, but not 2 years. So we were
Mhm.
together for long enough that it felt like it was getting serious. And ultimately, when that relationship ended, it took a very, very dark turn into
Mm.
him kind of developing stalker behaviors.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
that
Mhm.
was very much rooted in, and I didn't really see it until after we broke up, and I saw like all the stuff he was like posting about me on social media, and like his
Oh, wow.
family members started like messaging me randomly and like chastising me. But essentially, all of his stalking had been rooted in this paranoia that I was going to cheat on him because I had a history of being a sex worker.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah.
And he kind of 180'd on me. I think there's also some other mental health stuff going on there on his end that
Yeah.
I didn't really know about. But nevertheless, like that was an odd moment. And it was the first time I realized, like, oh, how is it that I've been with this person for as long as I have? And I've essentially, I felt like I'd been fooled for over a year into thinking that this man had, like, that he accepted my background because he
Right.
always knew about it. I told him, like, when we first started dating, and he was like, oh, yeah, that's cool. And it never seemed to be an issue. But I guess
Right.
what it was is that he hated it and it made him feel very insecure and uncomfortable. And he just never told me about it until it boiled over and he began stalking me out of
Wow.
concern that I was like going off and just fucking random people.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's, I mean, well, I can definitely see how that could also contribute to the like need to have a safe space. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
given, yeah, I mean, that must have been like a really hard transition out of porn and then, into, I don't know, that kind of situation where you kind of feel intensely scrutinized for your work history.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was really from him, and then I had another boyfriend later on that was like more accepting but also had his own kind of battles with being raised Catholic and not super comfortable with porn consumption in general, even
Mm.
though he watched a lot of porn. So that was an interesting
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah,
And then
I
the
know a
other big
thing or
part
two
was just
about that.
yeah.
As an
Yeah.
ex-Catholic myself, I'm
Yeah.
all too
Oh,
familiar with the
you grew up going to like Catholic school and stuff?
well, not Catholic school, but the Catholic church. Every week, and
Yeah.
the Sunday school, and when I was really little, I went to Catholic school. But
You were an altar
transition.
boy, weren't you?
I was an altar boy.
Yeah.
Indeed, yes, I was.
Oh.
I was an altar boy. I feel lucky now to have made it through that unscathed. But
Oof, God, yeah.
yeah, I know. I mean, it's I like honestly, I look back and given all of the allegations that have surfaced in Western Pennsylvania,
Yeah.
I feel kind of
Wow,
lucky.
yeah.
But it's so I was, and
But we were also outed by his family members who somehow found our porn, but were very
Oh.
judgy about
found
it.
on Facebook.
That's what they said.
Oh my. Oh yeah, all the hotbed of porn that is Facebook, of course.
It was so ridiculous because like so much of the family was mad because they were like, how could you do this? Children could see. And I was like, there is 0% chance that our porn is on Facebook. If you worked in porn, you would know that there is no way. Like, of course I'm not advertising porn on Facebook, but even if I wanted to,
I could not.
that is not a thing that would happen. Shit, I'm like a gender and sexuality professor, and like I can barely post about like
Your
college.
classes.
Yeah.
Facebook
God.
is so restrictive. I'm like, you think we're just like posting like blowjob clips on Facebook, like Obviously, like one of my uncles was like on a porn site and like didn't want to admit that and was like, "Oh shit, I saw it on Facebook because I'm old and I don't know how Facebook works."
Right, but
Oh
it's the
my
same thing
God.
you were saying, like people who have a lot of problems with porn are like somehow always on porn.
Yeah. Well. Oh God. Yeah, it never, I mean, honestly, that's like always the case. It's
Yeah.
kind of hilarious if it weren't so sad and they weren't also typically the same groups that are crusading against porn.
Right. Right.
But there's a lot of self-loathing there that like people I think never deal with. And I can say that as someone who did have to like spend a lot of time processing that, like coming up in like a really, really, really sex negative environment where like, masturbation was a sin and blah, 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 blah.
Oh.
And it's, it took me a long time to unpack that as an old person. I mean,
As an old person.
as a young person.
As an old person.
Maybe
as an
probably as an old person. But as an elder millennial. But it's tough. I mean, part of me is just angry because I had to grow up that way. But part of me like feels for all of the people who are still like trapped in all that self-loathing.
Oh, it's painful to see. Yeah. I have so many examples. Sorry, I worked in a job between my retirement and coming back to porn. One of the jobs that I had was in an environment where I actually worked alongside a number of evangelical Christians and even like seminary students. And
wow, in Kentucky.
Yeah. And there's a couple seminaries in Louisville. So
what seminaries are there?
There's a Southern Baptist Theological Seminary, and then there's
Okay.
a Presbyterian seminary.
I asked because I went to seminary, so.
Oh wow! Oh okay, yeah.
I figured that was.
I did not know that. Oh, that's
yeah.
cool.
I
was an altar boy, and she went to seminary, and look at us now.
Yeah, no, but I mean, I went to Berkeley, so it was like very.
So they were basically
I
making
imagine
porn
that's
in
different.
seminary.
Yeah, I don't think it was the same, but it was much more
Berkeley
like.
doesn't make you take an oath that you'll never consume alcohol, right?
No. Yeah,
pretty sure the Baptist seminary does do that to students, though.
yeah. So I was just curious because I probably like know about it, but it's been so many years since I did that. I did that right out of college, so it was an interesting experience. Actually, I find religion interesting, so I liked it. But I also wasn't in a very conservative, like anti-sex environment, so it didn't feel oppressive to me in the way that it feels oppressive to a lot of people.
Yeah, I actually was going to say something about that since this has become, a topic of discussion right now. But like because I get asked this a lot by fans, and like I was not raised in a particularly religious household, or at least I didn't perceive that I was raised in a religious household.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the strangest things to me about like, coming out to my family and specifically my parents as a sex worker the first time around in like 2012 was that my mom's kind of biggest beef with me choosing to do porn was initially, I think her perspective has now changed, but initially it was, how we raised you to be a Christian, how could you do this?
Wow. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Was that surprising to you?
Oh, 100%. I was like, what? I went to Sunday school when I was a kid. I sang in church choir. I like didn't ever hate church, but I didn't particularly love it. And then by the time I was supposed to, be the age that you go through like confirmation and stuff, I refused to get confirmed. And so I was never
so you were
confirmed.
Catholic?
No, so my family, my mom's the daughter, or was the daughter because my grandpa passed away, but my mom was the daughter of a Lutheran pastor.
Oh, okay.
So
right.
My family grew up kind of bouncing between Lutheran and Episcopal churches because my dad was usually a payrolled choir member. We would go to whatever church my dad sang at, and it kind of changed depending on what jobs he got and who paid him the most.
I didn't know that choir members were ever paid. I know organists are paid.
In churches with Yeah, in churches with like a big music program, they can be. And it's
Yeah.
usually not much. I mean, it's nothing you could live on. Like my mom has always been the breadwinner.
Mm.
Um so essentially she was really the one supporting the family and my dad was just like, "Cool, I like to sing."
It's a good life if you can get
Yeah. Yeah.
it.
But I just thought it was very funny that my mom's perspective was, well, we raised you to be a Christian. Like we've instilled these values in you that say don't do sex work. That's the same as prostitution and that's obviously bad. And I was
Right.
like, I don't know what you think you put me through, but I all
It
of the
didn't
things you
stick.
seem to think I absorbed, I did not absorb. What I did absorb though is like love people,
Right.
like basic, like just fucking love people, allow
Right.
people to be who they are, and don't hurt people.
Right.
Like that's actually so the religious or quote unquote Christian values, which I think are just like valuing humans, that I did learn growing up are things that I didn't really get from church. But fortunately, this is where I feel lucky about my childhood and the fact that I was kind of made to go to church as a kid, is like I at least didn't receive an opposing message from any of the churches that I went to growing up,
Yeah.
because we were going to these generally really liberal churches. Like Lutherans and Episcopals tend to be
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
pretty chill.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
I didn't really get
Episcopals,
any
like,
bad messaging. Yeah.
yeah, they Episcopals before a lot of other religions were ordaining openly gay people. So, yeah.
Yep. And they ordain women.
Right.
And God, my mom actually was like going to it. My parents have moved away, but for a while they lived in Kentucky, and my mom was very excited, and I think she was trying to get me to go to church every week with her, because her argument that she thought would convince me to go to church regularly is that her church had just hired a uh, female pastor who identified openly and used this terminology with the congregation, which is all like literally a bunch of like 90-year-old people that she identified as queer.
Oh,
Wow.
cool. Yeah.
And I was like, that is really cool. And
Yeah.
then my mom was like, I thought queer was a bad thing to call someone. So I had to explain
Yeah.
that to my mom. It was a very fun conversation.
How old is your mom?
My parents are like solidly in the boomer generation, and they're like 65 and 67 or 68.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
close to my parents' age too. Yeah, but I mean they were in California, so I don't think that they were I'm from California. I don't think that they I don't know. I'm pretty sure my mom knows how to use the word queer. I don't know about
Well,
my
that's
dad.
see, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
surprised that my mom actually didn't, because she always like
Yeah.
in her career she worked with people who were more like millennials and stuff. She was like essentially managing people my age.
Yeah.
But
Mhm.
but yeah, that no, she just apparently had never heard it. So
Yeah. Yeah. I mean it's just different cultural
Right.
contexts
I mean,
maybe.
to be
Yeah.
fair, a lot of my, gender and sexuality students still, come to college,
Mhm.
um, having an impression that that's term is fairly negative. So it's something that I talk about with them every semester, and people, it takes them a while to feel comfortable kind of talking about it. And of course, there's variations. I mean, some of them come in identifying as queer, but there's always a lot of people who that's not a word that they've heard thrown around a lot. So I think it just depends, if you're from the city or if you're from small town America, and like what
Right.
part of the
that's a good point.
country and all those
Yeah.
other things. I don't think it's I don't think it's even across the country.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a great point.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. So the podcast then going circling back to the
Yeah.
podcast, it seems like it's been a pretty like transformative experience for you then.
It has been. It's almost like it's been like a version of therapy or something.
Mhm.
Um and I mean that in the best way. Like it's given me a space to really like kind of work out some thoughts that I had around my own choices to do sex work, and then ultimately it helped me realize how much I really missed it, and honestly kind of re-empowered me to claim being a sex worker in the sense that like the longer I started doing the podcast and feeling comfortable about it, the more I was like, I miss this
Mhm.
enough. And like, I think I always missed it, but I was afraid of what that meant because
Yeah.
if I admitted that I missed it a lot, then it's like, well, now I look hypocritical because I made this big deal out of retiring, and like my parents are so happy that I quit porn
Mm.
and they finally
Mhm.
accept me. And
Yeah.
if I do porn again, then I'm gonna be like cast out from the family, and so I don't want to confront that. And so there was a lot going on
Yeah.
that I was
Mhm.
repressing out of basically fear of the stigma, and I had just internalized a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it kind of re-empowered me to really be like, you know what? Actually, like, fuck that.
Right. Yeah.
Just simply fuck that.
I know what you mean because there's something, I mean, we've been running the podcast, our podcast since 2017, and there's something about having these like weekly conversations with other sex workers that, and with each other, but to just have that space to do that makes you feel very connected to the community, to other sex workers, to have a stronger like sense of identity within the community that does make you feel like fuck that, like there's nothing wrong with me, there's nothing wrong with any of the people who I interact with. We're just people living our lives. I think it does a lot to undo some of that stigma.
I think it does. I think you're right. And I mean, even extending into like uh daily life and things like that. There are people that I know on like an acquaintance basis where I live that like we go
Mhm.
to the same gym, or like, I know them through a mutual friend, and like these people are not sex workers, they're not at all in the industry, but generally people around me kind of know that I have this podcast. And so just out of curiosity, once in a while I know someone will like download an episode, and it's kind of awesome how often I get just like a random message through social media, or like a text from someone that's an acquaintance of mine who will be like, hey, like your podcast is really cool, and like I've learned a lot, and it's really kind of like opened my mind to different lifestyles, and I
Mhm.
really appreciate
Mm.
it. And it's fantastic to get that kind of feedback from
Yeah.
just honestly just like talking about stuff I do that doesn't necessarily feel that special to me a lot of the
Right.
time.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think, it was funny because I totally know what you mean because we get used to, we're living our lives and these are our lives and these are our communities and our work, and so it seems pretty insignificant to talk about them on like a day-to-day level because, it's just talking about what you do every day. And I was at the grocery store the other day and this woman stopped me and she was like, "Oh my gosh, are you Jesse? I follow you." But, and she was obviously like a fan of the
Oh, that's
podcast
awesome.
and of my writing. And she was like, or she said, "I could write a article on why your Twitter feed is important because it's so amazing that you've integrated just regular life with like sexuality." And for people who don't feel like they can do that, that seems really radical.
Yeah.
And I
It
think,
does, and it kind of is.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
truly, like to me, it like I'm saying that as someone who, like, literally a year ago today was working at a desk job in a business that was owned by very, very conservative people, and at that
Mhm.
point, I was like doing OnlyFans on the side, but I was like, oh God, gotta hide this, you know. Like
Right.
it's
Mhm.
truly radical to like be an openly sexual being in
Yeah.
any way that integrates it, like that also shows your humanity.
I think what I was getting at is it becomes normalized when you do this all the time. But there's a lot of people who look at that, who look at your podcast or, our Twitter feeds where we've integrated life and sex and all sorts of things and think, wow, that's so amazing. Because I think that so many people are living like very compartmentalized lives.
Yeah.
But I also had a desk job at a conservative place where I was doing phone sex on the side. And by on the
On
side, I mean when
Not at the job.
no, I did it at the job.
It's okay. I would like, get a message on OnlyFans of like, you send me this photo and they'd tip me the amount, and then I would like go into the bathroom and take a photo of my butthole or something.
Yeah,
So
right.
yeah.
but At this particular job, you were left alone for like days at a time.
I was, yeah, because I was like holding down the fort while they were out on the job, and so
in the
I would be
field.
in the field. So I would
Yeah.
be sitting, sitting by myself, taking calls and doing stuff. And it was funny because I got laid off. And when I got laid off, they were like, well, I really hope you can find something to do. And I was like, I'm good. Because I had this whole sex work side hustle on the side that nobody knew about. And I was like, well, I'll just do this full time. I have a 3-month severance. Awesome. Bye. See you.
Yeah. That's great. Oh.
Yeah. And they wanted to, talk about it and process it. I'm like, I'm good. Do I need to come back tomorrow or can I just go?
Sold.
You're like, thank you for this blessing. Happy holidays.
Exactly. I'll never contact you again. But I hated working an office job.
Yeah, I loved the job that I had. I loved the work that I did, and I loved the people that I worked with. But yeah, I can't even overstate how much I hated sitting at a desk all day, which is ironic because I like often sit at a desk all day now, but it's
Right.
like,
it's on your own terms. It's a little different.
yeah, I'm not an hourly, wage worker, so it doesn't feel as exploitative.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Since you have returned to porn, I was just kind of curious about like how this return to porn has compared to like getting into porn in the first place.
It's been a lot easier than it was to get into porn the first time around in 2012 as an unknown. I was shocked, I have to say, like, aside from like doing my podcast, getting more comfortable with accepting that I missed porn in the first place, like the other kind of kick in the butt that made me like think, you know what, maybe I should consider going back into this was when I like realized how large of a fan base I still had as Siri, the porn star, because when I said I retired in like 2015, I truly retired. I didn't keep tabs on anything. Like there was a bit of work that I had to do to like wrap up some loose ends, but other than that, I was hands off completely and didn't look at it, didn't really think about it. And as soon as I started, thinking about it again, I was like, I Googled and I found like I had a subreddit with like over 50,000 subscribers and like,
Wow.
that was just a bunch of people posting photos of me. Like,
you didn't know it existed?
I didn't know. No. Because I mean, if it existed before I retired, it was much smaller and I didn't ever really use Reddit other than doing like one AMA. So yeah, it wasn't a thing that I was really involved in. And so seeing that and then realizing I also had like some dude who was running a fan Instagram account that had a large following. I don't even remember how many followers it had. So that was another thing I was surprised by. But that was kind of a comfort to me when I was thinking about returning to porn, because it was a very intimidating thought. Like, is that even going to be sustainable? Do people even want to see me anymore? Like, I didn't know. And as soon as I saw those things, I was like, well, there's evidence here that if I do return, I have people who are interested in seeing me on camera still. So that's good. And that's comforting.
Yeah.
So that being said, it's been so much easier coming back after a break because I have already built a fan base, basically. Like, there's still some challenges as far as like working for production studios. Like I don't have an agent, and I didn't really have an agent before either. But a lot of porn, like any field, there's a lot of networking involved for those things. Even with that, it's like I don't have to shoot for professional productions unless I really want to, because I can actually, at this point, I'm super excited to say that I can make a living on just like OnlyFans and creating my own content.
I was going to say that it seems like in the time that you were gone, that became more and more of a possibility too.
It existed before I retired, but it was on such a smaller scale. Like the big thing when I first started out, so like 2012, 2013 was Clips for Sale, which is of course still around, but they've been purchased by MindGeek Brands, which is the company that owns Pornhub, Brazzers, etc.
Right.
So Clips for Sale is kind of on the outs. I'm not sure if it's being purchased by MindGeek was an intentional way for them to, I don't know why they purchased it is what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, but
Yeah.
all I know is there have been a lot of people talking about like how Clips for Sale doesn't it doesn't produce as many sales for people since MindGeek bought the site.
Oh, that's interesting.
So whatever they've done, they have done something. I don't know if it's like SEO related or something where like that site doesn't actually produce as much income as it used to. But like there was a time back in the day that I was making a couple thousand probably a month on Clips for Sale.
Yeah, that's good.
It was good, and it was still far less than what I would make if I shot, one or two scenes professionally a week for other companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But fortunately I did get a head start on that, like in a time when many porn performers in 2012 through 2015 did not yet realize the value of having your own content.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And because I was doing Clips for Sale and I launched my own subscription website during that time, I owned all my own content. That like everything that I shot for myself, I owned, and I had a large library of my own content when I retired.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So that I think helped as well. Yeah.
This is kind of a minutia question, but I'm curious, did you keep your Clips for Sale running after you retired?
Yeah, it's still up to this day.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't do the same type of content I used to because the Clips for Sale was and is a little more of a niche like fetish site.
Right.
Or it's more oriented to those interests. So back when I had first built my store, my specialty was doing cosplay clips, and specifically where I would dress as Power Girl.
I didn't know you used to do cosplay.
Yeah. Well, it was only, I didn't even like care about comics or even really any like Power Girl stuff. It's just that I got so many requests from fans to do it that it just kind of became a thing.
So interesting. And I feel like that happens to a lot of people, that there is just some combination of traits that gets you kind of like pushed in a certain direction. And a lot of us, like, I don't know, we as a couple, like I have, for example, have gotten pushed into a lot of cuckolding stuff, a lot of like buy kind of content in a whole, I don't know, a number of different things that I would have never consciously said, like, oh, that's what we're going to do, when we were starting to get into this. But you just kind of find over time, you're like, wow, so many different people project the same kinds of fantasies onto us.
Yeah.
Maybe we should just cater to that,
We should just do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's such a good point.
I've talked to a lot of people who've had that experience with totally different things. And you wonder, like, what do I like emit that
triggers this fantasy,
Right. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, as someone who identifies pretty strongly as a if we're talking specifically about the like queer D&D alignment chart that got really like spread across Twitter about a year ago, I identify as a chaotic bottom. So coming from that direction, it's sometimes upsetting to me how much my own fans and also just like maybe like just porn fans who aren't necessarily particular to me, but like I get a lot of asks for more like femdom stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And like and a lot of the time it's like they don't just want like soft fem, they want like hard like mean girl femdom. And and I'm like, I'm a pillow princess bottom. I don't know if you know.
Oh my
this.
gosh, you're speaking my language. I have the exact same problem. And I call myself...
This story is so familiar to me.
I call myself a pillow princess, and I don't even mind. And
Same.
It doesn't even make me feel bad. Somebody's like, that's an insult, right? And I was like, no, I don't think
it's
so.
It's not. Excuse me. I just used it, sir. It is not an insult.
Yeah, I am totally comfortable being a pillow princess. I don't feel bad about it. And it's really... And it's really funny because I get so many requests for like Dom stuff. And I made a joke with a friend of mine recently and was like, I'm not a Dom, but I play one sometimes because I do. And I've become comfortable with it because I get a lot of requests for it. But it's not actually like I am not a Dom in any way.
When you started doing phone circuit work, it was so funny because you would be like, why do these people want me to do stuff?
Oh my God. Yeah.
Shouldn't they just hear the sound of my voice and
I just want
and
them
feel
to
my aura?
I just want them to worship my body and take care of me. Why do I have to do all of this stuff?
Dude, I feel you so hard.
Now is a good time to hit the pause button and head over to our Patreon at patreon.com/peepshowpodcast. Even $1 a month shows us that you care and want to see Peep Show continue to thrive. Also, you can help increase our reach with a review on iTunes.
Earlier this week, and we're recording this, about a week post-election.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and this started out as a complete and total joke, but I just recently, I think I found my stride when it comes to femdom, how I can comfortably produce femdom content where I am genuinely in a dominant space in a way I've never been before.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, I decided to make this. Well, it started out just because a fan who ordered a custom video from me, as a part of the custom order, bought these like pleaser, stripper heels that are lace up knee high, and they're 8 inches tall.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Crazy shoes. Like, they're awesome. And I am terrified of walking in them. But I recorded this custom video in it, and then I was like, damn, I look like I'm ready to kick a dude's ass in these shoes. I should film something else. And it was literally like the day after all the media started calling the election in Joe Biden's favor. And I was pretty elated about that news. So I was like, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a femdom clip where I only talk to people who, like, men who voted for Trump, who are Trump supporters. And I will just demean them. So that's the mental space I needed to get into in order to be authentic about my femdom. And like, it was a total joke, but I ended up making this short video about it. And like, what's hilarious is I like have a bunch of guys on my OnlyFans that are really enjoying it. And almost all of them have felt the need to send me like a disclaimer, like, hey, like, I'm Canadian. But I just really like femdom, and I'm like, dude, it's cool. Like, I don't like whoever you voted for. This video was kind of a joke. Like, it was fun for me to make, and just enjoy it. Like, have at it, sir.
A long time ago, before things even got this to where we are today, is the only way I can describe it.
It's divisive, yeah.
Yeah. I had somebody call my phone sex line who knew that I was not a Trump supporter, or I don't think he knew that. He just assumed that because he didn't actually know me. It's only somebody I've talked to once. And he wanted to be humiliated for his devotion to Trump. That's actually what he wanted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Do you remember that, PJ?
Not really.
Okay, maybe I didn't tell you about it.
Like,
yeah.
I mean, you might have.
What kind of things did you say to him?
I'm trying to remember. I mean, he really, like, I talked to him for half an hour or something before we really got into this because I was trying to figure out what he was looking for. And then he was like, well, oh, no, you know what it was? I remember now. It was even more elaborate than that. He wanted to do a role play where he was getting a massage at a massage parlor, but it was like a happy endings massage parlor. And he somehow was convinced by he was like tricked by his best friend's girlfriend. And she was the one who was going to do the massage, but she was angry with him because he was a
these
Trump.
Fantasies are always so elaborate.
They really are. She was angry with him because he was a Trump supporter. And so I was playing her, obviously. And so I was going to come in like pretending that I was going to give him this happy ending massage that we had negotiated like at the bar the night before because I was the girlfriend of his best friend. But then what I was going to do is use this like closed room that I now had him held hostage in
to God.
like tell him what an idiot he was and
oh my God.
beat him in some way. I don't know. It was a whole
This
thing.
really gives me a whole new insight into at least a small percentage of diehard like Trump supporters. It's like I wonder how many people out there who support Trump have a like some sort of femdom or like domination, I guess, or cuckold fetish, and it's just like except their fetish is not on a personal level, or maybe it is, but it's more on a national level. Like they just are excited to see the country be held hostage by Trump. All right, I'm going. I don't know. Like I'm going in a weird direction here, but
well, I mean, PJ and I were talking about this recently because, like, right before the election, actually, he was saying that the polls were looking really good for Biden, but we were talking about the fact that, like, I'm sure that there's a lot of people who are like secretly Trump supporters.
Oh, yeah.
Because they know that they're not, like, I think a lot of aware people know that they're not supposed to Trump.
Yeah,
so,
people are embarrassed by.
So we were like, is that really accurate? Is that really what people are, who they're going to vote for, are the people that they're talking about in these surveys? But also, I don't know.
Where do they get all the exit poll data? I've always wondered that, and especially I found myself wondering it in the past week. Like, I've never exited a polling place and been asked who I voted for. Like,
right.
I've had the same thought. Nobody ever asked me, so I don't know where they are.
I mean, they're sampling, so but yeah, I don't know. Clearly, they're not doing a good job. That's what we learned. Wherever they are, they're not where they're supposed to be. Either that, or people are just lying, or whatever. But boy, the polls did not do a good job this time or last time. But that's another story for another time. I just wanted to say that I did not consent to any sort of Trump national level domination kink, and I feel like all those people with this like weird fetish, Trump fetish, are they're violating my consent here, and I want them to stop.
Yeah, it's like, I understand you have your kinks. It's fine. I won't kink shame you. You want to be dominated by this man. It's cool with me, but that should maybe try to not bring it into the public arena so much.
Right. Yeah, maybe just hire somebody who could give you the same feeling.
Yeah, it's like, it's getting to where I'm like, okay, are we the people that are enacting a BDSM scene in the middle of the grocery store? These are just innocent onlookers. Take it inside, please.
Right. Yeah. So.
Well, maybe you figured out a post White House career for Trump. Maybe.
Yeah, I should write a column one week about my massage parlor session. Because there's there's a lot of psychological stuff to unpack there.
There really is. Like, there's truly a lot. I'm very curious about that. Honestly, I don't want to say that like my dad might fall into that, but I'm also going to say like I think maybe my dad might fall into that category of man supporting Trump.
Oh, I know my dad. I know my dad supports Trump.
Yeah.
And I can't talk about it. I can talk about it with you. I can't talk about it with him.
I don't. I actually saw my dad somewhat recently, and like we don't have like a bad we have an okay relationship, but like it's okay because we don't talk about his love for Trump, and we don't talk about what I do for a living. And as long as none of those topics are broached, everyone's okay.
Yeah, that more or less chalks up like our relationship to my family as well, and
yeah,
it's not ideal, but
yeah, it feels strained for that reason. And but I saw my dad like a week and a half ago, and he was very like proud to tell me that he's now, and he said this like with this grandeur, like it's a very special label to take on, that he's apolitical.
Oh,
interesting.
And I was like, I didn't pry. I was just like, oh, okay, all right then. But of course I'm sitting there going like, what does that mean? Like, I don't know what that means for you. Are you telling me that you no longer vote? Are you telling me you vote but you don't care? you're detached from the system. I was like, I don't know what that means, and it sounds like bullshit.
Right. Right. He's
Yeah.
above it. He's just rising above it all.
I mean,
Yeah, like, oh, well, what lovely privilege for you, sir. Like,
that's what I was going to say. I feel like, I mean, that's kind of a pretty privileged position to take. Like, most of us don't have, like, the choice of,
the luxury. Yeah.
the luxury of rising above politics. Like,
Yeah, so I'm interested in the experience that your friend had, like running the podcast with you. Do you feel like, because I know she doesn't, she's not a porn consumer. Do you think that her attitude about the industry has changed, like going through this with you?
Yeah, I think, and of course, I don't want to like speak for Rachel, but since we do the podcast together, we talk about this, frequently with each other. I think I have a pretty strong grip on her views about everything. And I think for her, because she is admittedly someone who doesn't really consume porn, at least not in audio visual format.
Yeah.
So and she's also queer, and even if she were watching video type porn, she's probably not going to be watching the type of stuff that I perform in. So she, as someone who doesn't really have a frame of reference for specifically the type of porn work that I do most often, I think she's enjoyed kind of getting to hear a lot more of the details of the inner workings of the industry. And and this is not something Rachel's ever said, but it is something I've heard from other friends of mine, or even like casual fans who aren't like habitual, like super habitual porn consumers, but will like join my OnlyFans just because they're like, wow, like it's cool that I can interact with you and you're like a human being. And I'm like, cool,
right.
Yes, we all are. But just on the podcast, we just talk so much about kind of behind the scenes stuff and like what making porn is like. And I think for a lot of people, all of that is so obscured. I've heard a lot from folks who have been fed a lot of misinformation about especially the mainstream porn industry. So I've heard a lot from folks who are like happy to hear via my podcast or whatever else that it's not the awful, completely unethical, demonic
right.
that it is so often made out to be.
Right.
Of course, there are bad actors. There are in every industry, and like porn has its baddies, but like by and large, these are people who are just doing their work and like getting by and living their lives. And in my experience, more often than not, porn performers are incredibly like kind-hearted and positive, loving people.
Yeah.
So really not the stereotype that has just existed for forever, it feels like.
Right. Right. Yeah. No, that's been my experience too. And I think that it's like, I think that those stereotypes are actually really, really hard to move past with a lot of people, because I think you're right that it is so like obscured and people don't understand how any of it works, and they have a really hard time understanding how you could be in it and then also go to the grocery store and do normal things and live your lives, which is bizarre. I almost feel like, how when you were a little kid and you would see your teacher out and you would be like, oh my gosh, you don't live at the school, like you have kids and you have like something else going on. I feel like that's how adults act towards sex workers.
Oh, that's perfect. No, because it totally is. It totally is. And like Jesse, you interviewed me for your article, and I kind of touched on this, but I kind of feel that since I don't live in LA, I don't live in a place that is concentrated with content creators and like Instagram influencers and people who are very publicly like being a somebody,
Yeah.
So when I'm outside of my house, I'm just like out here like in the middle of fucking Kentucky, like doing my thing. And I'll go to my gym and I get some like dude like giving me weird eyes, and I'm just like, oh, okay, like I don't keep it a secret. So like I know that he knows that I do porn, but I'm like, okay, like, watch me do my workout if you want to, sir. I'm literally just doing the same shit that you are, and it's not anything special. I'm not gonna, like, show you my titties right now. Like, granted,
gonna
I
have to
say
pay
that, and then
for
I've
that.
literally... Right. I'm like, well, I say that, but I have actually literally shot, like, a video clip of me with my titties out at my gym. It was just, like, at 11 p.m. when I was the only one there. So it's different, right?
I've had weird experiences like that. One day I sold something on Craigslist one time. It was funny because it wasn't funny. It was creepy. I sold something on Craigslist and my son was outside with me and the guy stopped and he's like, I know you. And I was like, I'm
Oh.
sorry. I don't think we know each other. And he's like, no, I know you. What's your last name? And he was trying to like, catch me on something. And I was like, I'm not from here. You don't know me. And then he finally left. Like I was blowing him off because I knew what he was getting at. And
Yeah.
my son was like, what is up with that guy? And I was like, I don't even like, he thinks he knows me and he's being ridiculous. And like my kids know what I do. So I think he picked up on what was going on, but I didn't have to be like super explicit about it. But he's like, my son's like, men are weird. And I was like, yeah.
I love it. Oh my God.
Yeah, and I had the same thing. I had the same thing happen because I have like tattoos that are fairly like people notice. And I was at a lacrosse game, and this dad comes up, and he's like hovering around me, and he's like, "Nice tattoos," and I was like, "Thank you." And then he's like,
God.
I like those tattoos. Those are He didn't say recognizable. He made it. I can't remember what he said, but he said something that was
memorable
like
or something.
Yeah, something like that. That I was like, all right, dude. Okay.
Yeah, that's like the rallying cry of like creepy internet like reply guys who like want to let you know they know who you are, but they don't want to just come out and be like, yeah, I looked at your porn
On Facebook.
Nice
Facebook.
tattoos. I like your on Facebook. I found your porn on Facebook. Great tattoos.
Terrible. Yeah, you're right. It is like a in IRL reply guy.
It really is. Yeah.
They like just orbit around. You're like, what do you want? I'm not going to, give you a show here in the middle of a, parent game.
Right. Okay, you know me. Please subscribe to my OnlyFans.
That's bizarre.
Bizarre is the perfect word to describe it.
Yeah.
Tell me about Kentucky.
Ah.
I'm actually interested because we are we share a mountain range. We share the Appalachians,
We're
and
actually not that far from each other. It's
No,
kind of
No,
cool.
we're not. Yeah.
they sometimes call Pittsburgh the Paris of Appalachia. I don't know if you knew. And they call Kentucky the delicious bourbon producing, bluegrass making.
Who is they? Is that you, PJ?
No, I don't know. Well, okay,
They,
no, it's
you know?
they. It's they. I
This
didn't
sounds
make
like
up the
all
Paris of Appalachia
The
thing.
Appalachians.
Yeah, but I was just.
I think that because I'm like, whoa, this is all stuff PJ likes. They.
I was just trying to balance. I didn't want to I didn't want to just talk about how cool Pittsburgh is. I figured we should also shout out to Kentucky
For the bluegrass and the bourbon. Yeah.
the bluegrass
it's
and the
beautiful
bourbon.
too, isn't
So
it?
I know about Louisville, but I don't I can't even pretend I'm like super familiar with the state of Kentucky, having lived in it for 5 years and never really seen anything outside of Louisville for the most part.
But that's a cool city, isn't it?
It is.
Isn't there-
It's one of the reasons that I choose to stay here and like travel when I shoot professional stuff out west rather than like just moving to LA, because I really like it here a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
that's unusual. I think when we think of porn, historically, and by historically I mean like when you started in porn, like only, like a decade ago or less than, we really thought of porn being concentrated in LA. And I mean, still it's concentrated in LA, though we see, more in Vegas and Miami and New York to some degree, right? But increasingly, it is possible to live in Kentucky and to be part of the porn world. And I just think that that's kind of interesting. So I was just curious about what it's been like for you to work from middle America, and if that's a different sort of experience.
It's vastly different. Like it's, I do like I rent a room in a house in LA so that I have like a semi-permanent place when I am out there for shoots. And so I'm only ever there like a week for a stretch, and then I'll come home,
Yeah.
But even like just being in LA for that week, I'm like, okay, like there's a lot I like about it, and I do sometimes miss Los Angeles, but I'm always more relieved to come back to a place where the entertainment industry isn't all around you, and all of my closest friends are here. My partner is here, which is a huge reason that I don't have any plans to like leave the area anytime soon, because
Right.
that's a very important facet of my life. And other than that, like I really like the people that I've met here. Louisville's an incredibly cool city with so much community, and so much to offer, and it's obviously been challenging. It's been a hard place, like for the community of people of color here. It's been challenging, I think, for fucking ever. But obviously with like Breonna Taylor, and all the protests over the summer that are continuing right now and still occupying the area formerly known as Jefferson Square in Louisville. Like it's a lot. I have friends that are directly involved in like organizing, and I just feel like I have really strong roots here now. So it definitely makes me feel a way where I'm like, nah, like if I were to move away from here, I would feel like I'm leaving some very important work behind, and like communities that I want to be a part of continually and want to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of that is like being someone who it's I like the feeling of actually having resources, because I never did before, in terms of like I can actually, like, when I see causes that need help, like I have time that I can offer, I have money that I can offer, and that's incredibly meaningful to me. And I think it says a lot also about like sex workers get overlooked a lot
Yeah.
in that regard. But yeah, I mean, like, I would like to do more like nonprofit work publicly, but like even in a place where like the help might be needed, there's so much stigma against being a sex worker that I like couldn't necessarily do that openly. So that's why I say I like having the resources to donate, because if I can't actually openly be a part of something, I'm like, well, okay, can you take my money? Like,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. I feel like that. I mean, I feel like that in, we talk about wanting to move at some point, but there is something about being able to be connected to like a smaller community that I think is, that I think there's something really powerful and important about that.
Yeah, it's incredibly powerful, and I never really had it in my life until I lived here, which is I think another reason that I feel so strongly connected now. Now
Yeah.
that I am here. People hear Kentucky and they're like, "Ah, yeah, hillbillies fucking your cousins," like, and they throw out all these things where I'm like, okay, yes, like that's definitely a stereotype that we should also really stop talking about. Like we should really get rid of that. That's very like, yeah, like if you want to talk about what's going on in the Appalachians and how those communities are disadvantaged, that's a conversation, but let's not start it with talking about fucking cousins. Like that's
right.
very okay. We can save that for our discussions about porn, since that's very prevalent in porn,
These days.
like taboo family relationships.
And more and more all the time.
Oh god, I know. But like people don't realize a lot if they've never been here that like Louisville's on the border of like I could drive basically an hour and a half and go buy legal weed in Illinois.
Yeah.
Like, so it's very close. Like we share a border with Illinois and with Indiana and Ohio, like I could
Mhm.
drive to Cincinnati in just over an hour.
Yeah.
And all those places are thought of as very strictly Midwestern.
Right. Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's it's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, that kind of being in a border place is always sort of an interesting experience, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is weird. It's also kind of weird because we're Eastern time zone, but if you drive basically directly north to like Indiana, or if you drive directly south to Nashville, you're in Central time.
That is
I
weird.
don't know why they drew the border the way they did, but it's
Oh, wow.
kind of odd. Yeah.
Yeah. Is there anything else, Siri, that you wanted to talk about?
No, I'm super content, especially now that we completed our geography lesson.
It's a very odd
feel
place
good.
to end.
Yeah.
We're like, we can draw a map for you all and put it on Instagram so that you can see where we're recording from.
Yay.
I think if we're going to have a topic to go out on, I think we should go out on butts, personally.
Oh, really?
Butts?
Okay.
Butts, yeah. I mean,
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think both of you, it's fair to say, are known for your butts. And,
That's true.
And
This is true.
I feel like this is what the people want, and as the representative of the people, I think we should talk about butts.
Are you a representative of the people?
Mhm.
Okay.
Let's gloss over that detail and stick with butts.
Is the people the eponymous like they that
Yes,
you
exactly.
were referring to?
Right, they, the
Okay,
people.
yes, they want butts.
Which it's so weird because I was on Night Flirt today and I don't even think I have butt pictures on Night Flirt, and I had two people who I've never talked to show up in my DMs and they were like, both of them within like 2 exchanges were like, I'm just really into really big butts. And I'm like thinking, how do you know that I have a really big butt?
You've got a rump
Twitter,
wrap.
Yeah, I guess. I was like, oh, okay, somehow I'm attracting the big butt followers, which is fine by me because I like them, because usually they tell me all the things they want to do with my butt, and I'm into that as a pillow
Same.
princess.
I love that. Like, I'm so sorry to the boob guys out there, like the titty lovers, because like, you look, boobs are great. Big fan of boobs. As everyone knows by this point, I used to have much bigger boobs, and then I chose to have a surgery to make them much smaller boobs.
Mhm.
So that being said, I have a great mix of like followers on Twitter and Instagram and whatnot who are like people who like big boobs that historically liked me because I used to have insanely large boobs.
Yeah.
But it's like interesting seeing my own fan base kind of divert more toward like butt people. And
Yeah.
and I'm so sorry to the boob people, but I like the butt people better. Like,
Oh,
I just like them better. And you know why? It's like what you literally just said, Jesse, because I like people doing stuff to my butt more.
Me
So
too.
the butt people get into talking about what they want to do to my butt, and then that excites me. But when someone's just like, oh, I just want you to titty fuck me for 45 minutes, I'm like, I would rather take a nap. If you would like to hot dog my butt cheeks for 45 minutes, that will get me excited.
I totally hear you. Which, although I had a funny experience too, because I did the opposite, which is that I didn't have like really any boobs, and then I got implants, and then people are still into my butt, and I'm like, why did I spend $11,000 on this? Like,
but you do like your boobs more now.
I do. I really like my boobs, but like,
I mean, not just like, visibly, but like the sensation too.
oh yeah, everything about it is better. Like, I wish I did this 5 years ago, but it's funny because like everybody's like, boobs, yeah, whatever. Like, I want to see your ass because that's who that's who my people are. I don't know. I think you're right. I think they are much more like, even when they want us to dom them, the only thing that they want us to do is just stick our butts in their faces so that they can like lick our asses. And I'm like, go ahead. I love this.
I'm into it. And then you get the thigh guys is what I call them.
Mhm.
Which of course can be thigh people of any gender, but thigh guys rhymes, so I gotta say it.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
But I love that. I love that because that's where I get the comments that are like, I just want you to like scissor me with your thighs until I suffocate to death. And I'm like,
I know, I get that too.
and I'm like, that's what I'm training for. Like literally when I powerlift, that's what I'm training for.
Yeah, I like that too. And then sometimes people are like, I didn't know you had thighs like that. And I was like, what else kind of thighs would I have on a body like this? Like, I don't know.
I've been hiding them.
They're like, I just love the thick thighs. I want to just bury myself in them. And I like that. I like those guys. They're funny.
It is fun.
I agree with you. I like the ass worshippers because even when they want to be like even when they want you to be dominant, it's mostly that they just want to do stuff for you. So
yeah,
it makes
Eat the
everything
booty.
fun. Yeah. And I want to let them. That's what I want to do.
perfect. Or as my partner says, skate fast, eat ass.
Well, that sounds perfect.
You gotta spell skate with a numerical 8.
Of course.
Is there anything else, PJ, you wanted to know about the butts?
No, that was fine. I just figured we should address this very serious and somber topic.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, but the cat's meowing and the baby is, getting whiny. So we probably should wrap it up. Unfortunately.
Yes, I think the timing is perfect, and I also need to feed my fur children.
Yeah. I need to feed myself. I'm hungry. So
I mean, we should probably seed the baby and the cat too, but
yeah, so let's end with since it's going to be on both of our podcasts, maybe we could plug our places.
That's a fantastic idea. Yeah.
So Siri, where can people find you?
You can find After Adult at afteradult.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And we're After Adult Pod on Twitter and After Adult on Instagram. You can also follow me professionally at The Real Siri PS on Twitter. And you can, if you want to email our podcast a question or anything for a future episode, you can just email me directly at therealsiri@protonmail.com.
This is the Peep Show podcast, and we are at peepshowmedia.com, where we have not only the podcast, but articles and other multimedia content about sex and the sex industry. So we're at peepshowmedia.com. We're on Twitter at peepshowmedia, on Instagram at peepshowmedia, and I am on Twitter as Sapiotextual, and I'm Jessie Sage, or Sapiotextual on most of the platforms. Minivids and OnlyFans and a bunch of other ones. And
all the places where you find your smut.
Yeah, Night Flirt and Sex Panther and wherever. PJ.
Yeah, I'm pretty straightforward. I'm Peej Sage. That's PEEJ Sage, because PJ is taken on everything, and
It's funny though because people think that's your name.
Is Peej, I know, which is fine because that's actually like what my family called me growing up. Like, hey Peej, so that's cool. I'll take it. We'll just be very.
But sometimes
casual.
people I don't know will be like, "How's Peej?" And I think that's funny.
Oh my god.
Which is
Yeah, that's
fine.
funny.
It's fine.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
So you can find me at Peej Sage on Twitter or Instagram or ManyVids or pretty much all the places, or the .com if you want to see my photography portfolio.
The .com.
The .com.
Okay, very good. We did a good job.
I'm also on the Facebook.com. If you really want to kick it old school, I'm going to start a MySpace.
Because it's where you post all your porn, right?
Right, it's where I post all my porn. I'm
Yeah.
thinking about starting a Friendster and a live
yes.
journal. So just watch out.
My Zanga is Siri porn. .zanga.com.
Okay. Wow. We're good at this. This is very funny to have to like be a host and a guest at the same time.
I
But
know it's interesting.
I think we pulled it off. I think we nailed it.
We're great. Hats off to us.
Okay.
All right. Well, it was nice having you and being had on our podcast.
It is also nice to host guest you on your My podcast. Thank you. You're welcome.
Okay, now I'm crying. Okay. All right. PJ, hit end record.
Thank you for joining us for yet another episode of the Peep Show podcast. I'm PJ Sage, and you can find me on Twitter at PeachSage.
And I'm Jessie Sage, and you can find me on Twitter at sapiotextual or at jessiesage.com.
We would like to remind you that we have a Patreon account and would appreciate your support. Please visit patreon.com/peepshowpodcast. Our music is courtesy of Joe Kennedy. The show was produced by Jessie and PJ Sage.
Signing off. Have a great week.